Coleman Crest Farm was purchased by my great-grandfather, and his name was James Coleman. And James Coleman, he was born in 1845 into slavery here in Kentucky. And he got his freedom because he escaped from around in this community to join the Union Army. And he was a very powerful soldier, just like many other recently freed African Americans in the Union Army. And he participated in a major battle called Milliken's Bend down in Louisiana, where he and his comrades, who were all just recently freed, stood up against the Confederacy. And they destroyed the Confederates in that particular battle. And they were so decisive with limited resources, unequal uniforms, pistols and rifles that didn't always shoot well. They didn't have the best equipment. They were still decisive. And General Grant and President Lincoln were so impressed that they decided that it was time to accelerate the recruitment of freed slaves into the Union Army because of what happened at Milliken's Bend. And I found out about this because I'm a member of Ancestry.com, and I got a copy of his military records that showed when he had served and when he had finished, and it even put in there that he had fought in the Battle of Milliken's Bend. And so upon his return, and after he and his comrades beat the Confederacy and saved our nation, he returned back here to the hamlet of Udingertown, and where he met and married his wife, and her name was Lucy Ward. Well, he and Lucy Ward raised 6 kids. And then in 1888, March 27th, 1888, they purchased the land that they had tilled as slaves. And they did this because Booker T. Washington had created the Union Benevolent Society, because African Americans could not get access to the mainstream banks in Lexington or anywhere in the country. And so they did something very unique. They decided to, whatever little bit of money they could pull together, they pulled it together and issued each other loans to do 2 things: to bury loved ones, as well as to buy land. And my great-grandparents were successful in convincing the officers of the Union Benevolent Society of Udingertown that they were worthy of a $1,200 jumbo mortgage. And they used that mortgage to buy the land known today as Coleman Crest Farm. Again, they raised a total of 6 kids, 2 girls and 4 boys on the farm. The girls' names were Susie and Sally, and their boys' names were William, John, Sam, and George. John happened to be my grandfather. And so when my great-grandfather died in 1910, Lucy died earlier. My grandfather took over the farm. He and his wife, Molly, raised 7 kids on our farm, of which one of the 7 was my father. My grandfather, he died in 1949, and that's when my parents, after they graduated from Kentucky State, and my father had studied agriculture and my mother studied sociology, they decided then to raise their kids on this farm and to take it on into the next generation. And so my father, understanding growing up here on the farm, as well as his academic training at Kentucky State, he knew a lot about farming and how to make it successful. And they raised us 5 kids on the farm, and they made our farm very successful. And today, I'm the 4th generation owner. I purchased it from my mother in 2001. My wife, Kathy, and I purchased it, and I've owned it ever since. And today, it's a certified organic farm. We serve about 8 major commercial accounts here, commercial accounts in Lexington, and the farm is booming. And I'm proud to say that we do a good job in providing a good, fresh, all-natural, certified organic produce for our customers, as well as we hire several people in our community to help us to do this work. And so that's the story of Coleman Crest Farm. But one story that is personal for me, that I experienced firsthand here at Coleman Crest Farm, was when my father came home one day and I was 12 years old, and he got out of the truck. I said, "Hi, Daddy." I couldn't wait. My dog Spot was standing right beside me. He said, "Hi, help me to get these groceries out of the truck. I'm beat. I'm carrying everything. Your brothers and sisters are all in school. I'm working at the post office serving parties at night for Miss Whitney." That's a big horse farm down there on Bryan Station Road. He said, "I can't do it all." I said, "Well, what's wrong, Dad?" He said, "I'm tired." He always talked about he was tired, and he was. He had served in World War II. His mother died when he was 10. He had been a man since he was 10 years old. His little heart was tired. And he said, "You're going to have to step up." I said, what can I do? He said, step up. You're the manager. And I said, well, I was excited because I was happy to be the manager. He said, that means you're in charge. I said, when am I going to get paid? He said, 3 hots and a flop. I said, well, I'm already getting that. Now, for those of you out there who are watching this that don't know what 3 hots and a flop are, that's 3 meals and a bed to sleep in. And my father was now charging me for that through having me to work for it. He said, you're getting it, but now you're going to start earning it. He said, you're going to be the manager of the farm. And not only the 3 hots and a flop you're getting today's pay, but I'm also going to send you to college one day. That was kind of like delayed gratification. That was like, if you want to think in a big corporation, that was your incentive bonus, your bonus that you're going to get over time because of being a shareholder. Well, I loved it. And the first thing that I did was to take care of the pigs, the cows, the sheep, keep all the equipment in the barn, keep everything clean. And after a couple of weeks, the pigs were breaking out. And they would go over to our neighboring farm and root up their fields. And the farmer over there, Mr. Shields, would call over and he would say, come over here. And sometimes he would call at 4 o'clock in the morning. Your pigs over here rooting up my farm. Come get them right now. And my mother would have to wake me up, baby, you got to get up. Mr. Shields called, you got to go get the pigs. And I'm like, daggone it, Mom, they broke out yesterday. I know, baby, but I'm going to have your Joel bacon and your eggs ready when you come back. And I would go over there with my dog Spot. And sometimes it'll be raining cold. And we'd get the pigs in. It could be miles, 2 or 3 miles to get them back in the pen. And I later learned that the pigs were just hungry. We could only grow so much corn on our farm. My father was deciding to buy extra corn at Southern States. That's one of the local granaries here in town. And when my brothers were doing it, they were giving them corn, but I decided, you know what, I'm tired of getting up this early in the morning. If they're hungry, because that's why they're breaking out, I'm going to just triple the amount of feed on the corn side that my father was buying from Southern States, and that would stop them from breaking out. And it did. He came up to the barn about a month later and said, look at yonder. These are the biggest hogs we've ever had. I said, I'm doing my job, Daddy. He said, you're doing your job, but you're going to break us. Now, I'm thinking, now, how am I in trouble for doing a good job? He said, we're going to have to figure something out. I said, well, Daddy, if we stop giving them all this extra corn, they're going to start breaking out again. He said, then you're going to have to go get them. I said, well, that's not fair. He said, life ain't fair. I said, why don't we just sell the pigs? He said, you can't sell the goose that lays the golden egg. That's the name of this story. Well, that meant selling the pigs was not an option. So I said, then what are we going to do if we're not going to sell them? And if we're going to keep them and I can't feed them, then they're going to keep breaking out. It's just a tough business, the pig business. Well, we can keep everything else dead. Let's just get rid of the pigs. He said, give me a couple of days. I'm going to figure this out. A couple of days went by, came back up to the barn, and he told me he had worked out a deal on this restaurant that was on his mail route called Saratoga Restaurant. And they were having a big problem with all the excess slop, the table scraps. They put them in these big oil barrels and put them in the back of the kitchen and let the city pick it up with the garbage. And the restaurant was smelling one day. My father said, what is going on? And went in the back. They said, can't you see? They had 5 barrels of slop in the back. And he said, how often does the city pick it up? They said, can't you see? It's 1 time a week. He said, well, how much are they charging to pick it up? He said, they charge me $5 a barrel to pick it up. He said, well, why don't you let us pick it up? My son and I, we can start picking it up tomorrow, and we'll start picking it up every day so you don't have all this in the store. They said, when can you start? He said, tomorrow. And we did. We stopped buying all the feed from Southern States. We brought the pig slop home. The hogs smelt it at the top of the hill. When we pulled in, they were circling the truck. We pushed over, they were eating it like crazy. They were loving it. About 2 months went by, then all of a sudden they were so massively big, they stopped eating all the slop. Now we got a new problem. We were backed up and having all these barrels up in the barn, and that was bringing in rats and all kinds of other rodents. I said, Daddy, we got a new problem. What are you going to do now? I said, we got all that slop, and the rats are trying to eat it. He said, why don't you go up and down the road and see if the other farmers want to buy the rest of this, and tell them it's $5 a barrel, and start with Cousin Will first. I went up the road, but less than a half a mile from our farm. I said, Cousin Will, we got slop. They had about 30 pigs, too many. He said, slop? I said, it's $5 a barrel. He said, bring us as much as you got. I knocked out their costs because they were buying feed too. $5 was cheaper than all the feed they were paying at Southern States. Because of changing that, not giving up, and finding a new way to reduce the cost and improve the productivity of our farm through our pig business, and finding a new revenue stream by reselling the slop that we'd already been paid to bring out to the farm to give away to our pigs, All of that combined came up to a little over $5,000 in savings by the time I was ready to go to Howard University. And my father took out an additional $5,000 on the farm for a total of $10,000 that covered 4 years for me to go to Howard University. And so this story called Don't Sell the Goose That Lays the Golden Egg is about sustainability. And it paid for me to go to Howard University. And it's about delayed gratification, not quitting, not giving up, disruptive innovation, creativity, collaborating, finding a way to help others solve their problems, because when you do that, they'll help you to solve your problems. That's the biggest lesson I learned growing up. And I wrote a book about it, and it's available on Amazon for anybody that would like to buy it. Well, after being away for 40 years, when I was working on the farm, my father told me what to do. Now, he told me I was the manager, but that was his way of making me feel good, tapping into my drum major instinct, encouraging me to work. He really understood how to harness the drum major instinct in me. But I was taking direction from him. So I learned a little, but you really learn a lot when you have to do it yourself. And the biggest challenge that I had, that I'm blessed that the good Lord helped me on this, is that I was talking about I want to be an organic farmer, but I had no idea, clueless on how that was going to happen. So I didn't have the operational experience or know-how of how to lay out a crop plan, how to buy the right amount of seed that would take care of the amount of rows that I have. I had no idea that, you really needed a reliable source of water to maintain the farm. So I didn't understand the strategic planning side of it or how to actually get it done. I did understand how to sell. That's what I've been doing for the last 40 years. But the operational part I did not have. And I was very fortunate that this wonderful angel, her name is Gail Wallace, called me after we had a big event out here to celebrate the restoration of Coleman Crest Farm. It was on TV and in the newspaper, and she called. And she said, my husband and I are retiring, and we'd love to invite you down to learn about organic farming. We've heard you want to be an organic farmer. I said, I do, but I don't know what to do. They said, well, come on down. Now that is a blessing. It's not something I prayed for. It's not something I read out of a book to say, okay, now what do you have to do to get an organic farmer to call you to get some help? That was just purely a blessing. And I'm blessed that Ashley Smith, who runs Black Soil, was able to get me on television to get this earned media, to get the word out that, hey, help, Jim Coleman wants to be an organic farmer. I went to meet with them, and they told me all the things that they did that worked, that didn't work. They even promised that they would consult me, help me to create a plan. And on top of that, they introduced me to their son, Grant Wallace, who then, after meeting with Grant, he's so brilliant, I hired him to be the farm manager. And for the first 3 years, Grant worked with me as the farm manager, and I was helping him with his leadership skills and selling skills, but Grant was helping me with understanding the operational side, how to use their equipment. They brought the equipment that they had up there. As a matter of fact, when they retired, they donated the equipment to the farm. You were talking about a bed maker that lays the plastic mulch over the bed and has the drip line under it. A poly planter that drops the seed into the soil. A deep soiler that pulls the potatoes up without destroying the potatoes. Using neem oil to manage the bugs so that their little wings get irritated but not necessarily kill them, but it's all natural versus having to use chemical pesticides. Using plastic mulch to minimize weed pressure and absorption of the water. I didn't know any of this 3 years ago. But just like anything, you can either go to YouTube or reach out to people that know it or a combination of to find out. And that's what happened. The barrier was I didn't know what to do. And I went to the right people to find out. And I was open to their direction and feedback to being able to get it done. And today, Coleman Crest Farm is a certified by the USDA organic farm, 117th in the United States. African-American owned. What I would say to those who are aspiring farmers out there, number one, there are all kinds of organizations out there that if you want to learn about organic farming, from the Organic Farming Association, call it OAK here. We're going to have a big conference this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Go to oak.com. You can go to Black Soil, Kentucky. And that's Ashley Smith. She is the Harriet Tubman of black farming. If you want to learn how to farm, call Ashley, and she will connect you with incredible resources and guidance on where to get resources and help. Third, if you're interested in being an incubator farmer out here at Coleman Crest Farm, I welcome you to come out to Coleman Crest Farm. You can go to jim@colemancrestfarm.com, send me an email, and I'll give you a tour. You can come out here and work with us this summer and learn all about it. Because if you learn about the business, then you can put together a plan and a pitch deck that you can take to a bank or private individuals that can help you to finance your purchase of whether it's 1 acre, 50 acres, or 100 acres of land. If you know what you're doing, you've got some experience at it, then you can demonstrate that you can pay them back for whatever money, whether it's through equity or debt financing, you can get them their money and the return on investment. And so that's what I would say is to learn the business. It's fun. Get out here in the soil. Learn, quite frankly, what I love about the organic side is that at Coleman Crest, the only pest at Coleman Crest Farm is the human being. We don't call all of our insects pests. They were all here 25 million years ago. Humans showed up about 5 million years. So that our ecosystem partners have been here 20 more million years before us. And they work well together. For instance, we've got moles all over the place in our backfield because we grow potatoes. But we got Crest the garter snake that goes out and scares them away, and those that don't run, he eats them. So we don't kill Crest the garter snake. We've got Carolina the praying mantis, who's out there all the time overseeing crops, and she eats all the beetle bugs and most of the others that are out there when the population is too high. So we want to have praying mantis. We don't want to spray them and kill them because they help to maintain the ecology, thereby protecting all of our plants. We also use Protect Net, which covers our plants kind of like a silk. We also grow plants that oftentimes the insects don't like the smell of or they don't like the taste of. And so that's okra. And okra is a very productive plant, but they don't like, the insects don't like the taste of it, and they don't eat it, they don't bother. To help us to increase our fertilization and yield, we grow about 1 acre of sunflowers. Why that? Well, sunflowers bring in butterflies and bees, and these are all pollinators. So when they land on the flower, they enjoy the taste of the nectar and the smell of the plant. And while that happens, they get all the pollen on their wings, and then they fly off to another plant, and they then fertilize that plant through pollination. Before we grew that 1 acre of sunflowers, we were getting about 50 pods per plant of okra. And when I grew the 1 acre of sunflowers the following year, we were getting 75 to 100. And that's through all natural. But I did not know any of that until I met Grant, his parents, Eric and Gail, and until I joined OAK, the organization, Organic Association of Kentucky, as well as the Black Farmers Association, and working with Kentucky State and University of Kentucky and their extension agents. And so there's not a lack of resources out here if you want to learn. If you're open to learning, you could take 2 or 3 years out, learn the business well enough to where you can put your own plan together and go to people that can help you to buy your own land. Or you can lease land. You don't have to always buy it. You can lease a piece of land and have your family there and partner and raise it and still be very successful.